Hello, good afternoon. So this afternoon we are connecting with Jodi, and Jodi is a sober coach, and we're talking about how to manage alcohol and drinking and balance and hormones and tactics and strategies that we can use for that. So I'm just going to that she'll be able to. So you should be able to join as well. Just switch off the camera and laptop.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Just
How are you both?
Good, thank you. Well, we're both full of the normal viruses at this time of year.
Yes, I think it's got everybody at the minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Katie's coughing and I'm full of a cold, so we don't sound like the healthiest pair of doctors you could talk to this afternoon at
No,
all.
I'm
but
going
I
to put
think
a
it's
disclaimer out there that if I start with a coughing fit, I'm just going to leave because it's not very pleasant to listen to, so apologies.
that was me last week. That was me last week. I had to cancel everything because I had no voice at all. But I think it speaks volumes when the doctors start getting it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's time to slow down. So lovely to see you both. I'm glad that we've all been able to join and to hook up this afternoon. Should we just do a quick round of intros so that those of the people that are joining just know who everybody is? So if we start with you, Jodi, first of
Yeah,
all. Say hi
sure.
to you.
Yeah, so I'm Jodi Clark. A lot of people call me Sober Flourish, but that's not my real name. So I'm a alcohol-free coach and business mentor. So I run alcohol-free programs and also do one-to-one coaching for, I was going to say middle-aged women. It generally tends to be the demographic that I work with. But yeah, helping women from all over the world try and change their relationship with alcohol.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And so for those audience that don't know who we are, I'm Dr. Laura Clark, and Katie.
I'm Dr. Katie Hilton, and we are together. We form the Lifestyle Health Clinic, so we're specialist women's health GPs with special interest in lifestyle medicine and women's health. So we see a lot of menopause and perimenopause in our clinic. We have clinics in Bramhall and Poynton, and we also consult with ladies all over the country online.
And definitely this last couple of weeks, we have seen so many women that have been talking to us about how alcohol features in terms of a relaxant, how it's affecting them in terms of how they feel symptoms physically, mentally, and how to balance that and feel like you're enjoying yourself. So I think the important thing from today is, first of all, is that we're not telling anybody to decide not to drink. It's just that it's a really useful way to talk and develop strategies and shared experience, because you've got loads of experience, Jodi.
Yeah.
And in terms of what women are experiencing, and we get asked so many questions, so it's lovely that you've been able to find the time to speak to us both today. So thank you so much in your busy schedule, I'm sure, at this time of year.
You're welcome.
And we should
You're welcome.
say that even though we've both got blonde hair and we've both got the same surname, we're not related.
No, we are not.
And you spell Clark the proper way as well, which is
That's
quite
it.
we're definitely part of the same gang. So shall we start off with, first of all, about perhaps your kind of personal experience, Jodi, in terms of how you're so knowledgeable about alcohol and the insights that you can bring to the table in terms of what you've experienced and from alcohol and how it's affected you and the things you've noticed.
And firstly, I've said this to you before, haven't I? That it's all from personal experience and also from the women that I work with as well. I'm not here to sort of share all the science behind it and all the data, etc. That's all very readily available, but it's all personally from personal experience. And from me, it was a bit of a strange way that I kind of got into this, really, because I didn't stop drinking alcohol because I knew of the health implications or I was concerned around the health implications. I stopped drinking alcohol purely because I gained a hell of a lot of weight during COVID. A kind of series of unfortunate events ended up that I was heavily overweight and drinking a lot more than I wanted to. And I knew that the only way that I could lose some weight was when I took a break from drinking. So I set myself a 100-day challenge, and that's all it was ever supposed to be. And then at the 30-day mark, I'd managed to somehow brainwash myself by listening to the right things, watching the right things, around how it kind of impacts our brains and our mental health and hormone implications, etc. That I did make that decision quite early on, knowing that I wasn't going to drink again. But it was in that kind of 100-day period in not drinking and giving myself that break and putting that distance between that really regular drinker that I had become, did I start to notice how ingrained it had become in my life up to that point, and actually all of the negative implications it was having that I'd had my blinkers on against for all of this time. So in stopping drinking, it's the age-old story. Obviously, skin gets better, sleep gets better, relationships improve, more present with the children. I was able to be consistent, and that's possibly one of the biggest takeaways for me, is that any of the goals that I have now, I'm able to be consistent and show up for myself, and make the right choices.
Amazing.
I think consistency is such a good word in terms of how we feel when there's so many demands on our bodies and on our minds, that trying to navigate that without all those influences coming at us from all directions, it can be really hard. But yeah, the word consistency we talk about so much in lifestyle medicine and women's health, because it's the long term. There's no quick fix, there's no shortcut to feeling good and well, and there's no crash course. It's all about day-to-day real life on the shop floor, if you like, lived in experience about what we're all going through.
I think sometimes as well, as you said with you, Jodi, you don't sometimes realise how much of an impact it's having until you stop it. So we see a lot of ladies who are struggling with hormonal symptoms, and sometimes we'll suggest to them, if they're amenable to it, to just cut it out for 2 weeks. You don't have to say you're never going to drink again, and just to monitor your symptoms. And the number of women that come back and say, oh my God, like I'm sleeping better, my clarity of thoughts better, my brain fog's got better, as you said, your relationships better, you're more present, there's just so many improvements that can be seen just by doing something so simple. And we're not saying it's easy, and we're not saying that that's something that you have to stick with forever, but sometimes it takes that of stopping it and just monitoring things to realize how much of an effect it's having on you.
And sometimes it is the last thing that we want to try as well.
I know,
especially when
especially
we
this time of year.
Sorry, go on.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that we do, especially with the ladies that I work with. I think sometimes, sadly, we do get to the point in life where we are so much to everybody else that, unfortunately, we do think it's the only thing we've got for ourselves. So we almost don't want to give that up. So it is the last thing we try, and then you do. But it's the same. I think, Katie, you shared a post yesterday about HRT, and it's having those conversations with people. It's okay, you can take HRT, but there are a number of different lifestyle elements that we need to be looking at as well. And it's the same with becoming alcohol free. You can stop drinking initially or kind of cut back, but for this to be a longer term lifestyle change, something that's going to be sustainable, we need to be looking at all of those other elements as well.
And looking at why, I think is really important. The thing that strikes me is that it's, alcohol is often seen as a pleasure, it's a treat, it's been deserved, we've earned it, it's reward, all those behaviour associations around it. The negatives or the less positive aspects of drinking don't seem to be so loud initially, but actually once you stop to look at how you feel and think, is there anything contributing to that, that's when you can start to be a bit more clear as to what might be causing what. And it's almost, if you're adding extra things in and you're trying to make yourself feel better, it muddies the waters, doesn't it? In terms of what you can measurably see is happening. And women generally, it's a relaxant. It's our experience. It's a marker. It marks the end of the day, it marks the weekend versus the week, and celebrations and reward and all of that. And so it can be quite complicated to think, but there's all those pleasurable things surrounding that. And it does feel quite restrictive for some women when you start talking about, actually, should we think about changing that?
It can be scary, can't it? It really can be scary. And one of the things that I heavily talk about with the women that I work with is don't focus on forever. It doesn't have to be today I'm not drinking ever again. It's just have a break. Have a break and see how you feel, and start to kind of even make a note of that. Keep a log of actually the difference in how you're feeling after a short period of time. And don't think of forever. I mean, I have ladies in the group that are coming up to a year alcohol free, and some of them still don't want to say forever, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
But
And it's trying
here and now.
Sorry. It's
okay.
trying to find other things to get pleasure from, isn't it?
100%.
Because if you've got into that habit and that's how you're relaxing, and that's how you're switching off, it's very easy for us to sit here and say, right, stop drinking. But actually, you need to have things in place to replace that and to get pleasure out of, and thinking what that might be. For different people, it's different, but it's it's having that in place, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. It's it's new habits. At the end of the day, drinking is a habit. It's something that we have associated with almost every emotion out there. And it's just trying to find something else that you can do that's going to achieve that reason for drinking. I do a lot of work with ladies around that kind of perceived benefits. What is your reason for wanting to have a drink at the end of the day? And 8 times out of 10, there'll always be a big crossover, but there's just those couple of little things in there that are unique to you, kind of that mental gymnastics that are relevant just to your story. And it's about digging in and what have you got available to you that you can do in that moment that will give you the same relief, the same sort of outcome that you're chasing, which can be quite powerful. But it's habits at the end of the day, and it's creating those new loops, which sounds a lot easier than it is.
Absolutely. So perhaps it might be useful shortly to discuss some like strategies and tactics in a way, because you need to sort of have that mental toolkit when you're making change. I think for us, Katie, one of the tools we use is information and explaining why it can make you feel less good. I think once you understand the reasoning behind it, and it's not just, oh, you shouldn't do that, it's not good for you. It's actually, did you know that it dilates your blood vessels, so it makes those physical symptoms more pronounced? So the flushes, the headaches and the sweats because of the histamine response with alcohol. If you understand, we don't want to bog people down with this.
No, of course not.
As humans, I think if we know reasoning behind decision, then we can say, well, I know all of this.
Yeah.
Where do I fit in that picture? What should I change? And I think histamine and alcohol, often people think, well, histamine's allergies and hay fever and things like that. But actually, you know, the mechanism and the science behind why alcohol makes you feel rubbish is really important to understand. Do you want to talk a bit more about that, Katie?
Yeah, so obviously we know that research shows that as we get older, we don't metabolize alcohol as well. You know, the liver can't detoxify it properly, so that's why, you know, it's not a myth and it's not in your head that your hangovers are worse than they ever used to be when you were younger. You know, we just cannot tolerate alcohol like we used to when we were younger. We know that it makes anxiety worse and mental health symptoms. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that. So, you know, if you're already struggling with anxiety and low mood, although a lot of people turn to alcohol to try and relax and switch off in the evening, we know it actually has the detrimental effect on your mental health long term. So it makes depression and anxiety worse. You know, the whole anxiety that people get the morning after drinking is a real thing, and a lot of women do report that. And it also it increases your risk of future health problems as well. So, you know, alcohol increases the risk of things like breast cancer. So people are probably aware of my history, where I've got a strong family history of breast cancer. So I made the conscious effort to, I'm not completely teetotal, but I've consciously massively cut down. Like, you know, I'm going out for Christmas do's now and I'm driving, and I'm just not in that place where I want to drink, just because I'm aware that my risk is already high. So reducing that risk as much as I can is really important. So and you know, the risk of certain cancers and long-term health problems as we get older increase postmenopausally. So by reducing your alcohol intake, you reduce your risk of those long-term health problems as well. And as Laura touched on before as well, you know, your hot flushes, your poor sleep quality, your tiredness, your fatigue, all those menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms are exacerbated by alcohol intake. So it's you know, it's something that you can do, that you're in control of, that you can try and help your symptoms.
And I think brain fog is probably the symptom that we see so much of, and it's very, you know, very frequent in the list of hormonal symptoms, whether that's PMS, PMDD, perimenopause, menopause, but that clarity of thought. And we just know that alcohol disturbs all of that balance. Basically, you know, your sleep is less good, and the estrogen directly for women does affect the way you metabolize alcohol, unfortunately, and we can't dress that up and make it sound any better. And the relationship between estrogen and alcohol and histamine is quite complicated. You know, so you know, if you're using HRT, for example, you know, you're almost putting something good in, but then you put something else in, which is the alcohol. That the two are going against each other because they influence the chemical that breaks down the histamine. So that's really, you know, the rationale behind why we say to women, well, it's all very well as putting these extra resources in, or even if you're not using medication, if you're trying all these other things to make you feel good, it's almost like you kind of the potential of how good you can feel is dampened down by the effect of alcohol, and making the choices, maybe swapping out if it's not to choose alcohol elimination completely. Initially, can you think of some swaps, so that we know that red wine and beer and champagne, they're histamine rich. And they can make the symptoms worse. That perhaps if you are drinking and you're not quite ready to go and have a complete break at this stage, could you think of something different? So in terms of your experience, Jodi, what do you find are women's pain points in terms of other people around them? Perhaps at this time of year is probably a really useful thing to discuss, how to cope with pressure and wanting to maybe prioritize yourself, already made that decision that, as Katie said, oh, perhaps it's not for me right now. How do women cope with that?
I think it's being firm with your decision as well. It's your choice. And it's about communicating with other people. I think bringing them along for the journey. I think some people have this shame and that fear of judgment from others, where they keep it to themselves, and they actually make that a lot harder for themselves, because we have this preconception that everybody else is going to have an issue with it, and that are going to, well, are you an alcoholic, or what's the reason behind it? And actually, some people don't even have evidence of that conversation even happening. You've kind of built that up in your head. I know for me personally, if I hadn't have brought Dale, my husband, along for the journey and driven him crazy with every thought that was going through my mind, I wouldn't have lasted as long as I did do. So I think being very open with people, you can tell a white lie if you need to, or you can be completely honest. But I think that give it the importance that it deserves, especially if you're trying to take a longer term break, and almost put as much energy and effort and passion into that element of your life than you did when you were drinking all the time. And being open, I think that's a big tip for mine.
I think so, and sort of if you tell yourself that it's not something that you need to worry about, it is less of a thing.
Completely.
I think you're right that we think it's a thing more than it is.
Yeah, and people get over it really quickly. And I think sometimes in a social setting, maybe if you're kind of not just with your family environment, but if you're in a social setting, it lasts about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If somebody is awkward about it, you can make your kind of beeline for somebody else, but it only lasts a short period of time, and then nobody cares, because they're probably a bit tipsy anyway. They're doing their own thing.
I think as well, it's important as well for anybody listening to this. If somebody says they're not drinking, just support them. Just say, "Oh, that's brilliant." It's actually becoming more and more common, isn't it? My group of girlfriends, there's a handful of them now that just choose not to drink. Becoming more the norm, but it is still. It is still sometimes a taboo for some people, and I guess certain friendship groups and things. But yeah, if somebody says to you they're not drinking, brilliant, yeah, fab, let me get you a soft drink.
People a hard time for we don't question, oh, you're out, why are you having a drink? And it's the same for, well, you're out, so you're not having one. And like you say, it's framing it as that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's more common now as well for people to say, oh, me too. Especially if you're out with the girls, oh, me too, I'm having a bit of a break as well. And I think you maybe open that conversation for other people to feel that they can be honest
making it the norm, isn't it? And making it so acceptable. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And finding different settings. I think we've moved away from since COVID as well. Lots of us have reevaluated choices and decisions about how we spend our time. So thinking about the setting, what you do with people, how you socialise, how you connect with them. Can there be something else involved that doesn't even involve alcohol initially? Or is it the pleasure in the food? I mean, I'm a huge foodie. As Katie will know, I absolutely adore food. And for me, that's replaced having a drink. The pleasure of, really good for somebody else to cook a meal, and all the effort that goes into it, and to try things that you wouldn't necessarily have at home. So it's tapping into different things that hit that kind of pleasure sensor, really, in terms of what feels like it's a good time and a treat.
And there are some really, really good alcohol-free options out there now. Now, I've been alcohol-free for 2.5 years now, and when I first stopped drinking, there was still maybe Stella, Heineken, a few other bits and bobs everywhere now. There is so much choice, so many varieties. Obviously, try and be a little bit careful on the side of the mocktails, or it can be a sugar hangover waiting to happen the next day. But there's so much choice. So if you really want to go out and feel like you're still part of it, there's plenty. There's plenty available.
Yeah. I have to tell you a story. When I went to Ibiza Classics at Tatton Park in the summer,
and
my friend,
remember the
Yeah, and it was rained. It was horrible. But anyway, my friend wasn't driving. In fact, she wasn't. She was driving, so she wasn't drinking. And the bar was offering, if you showed them your car keys, you got free non-alcoholic beer.
Oh wow!
Beer for plastics. Yeah, so I was like, well, that's a sign of the times, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, any designated driver got free drinks,
That's
which
amazing.
is.
I've not heard of that before. It's brilliant.
I didn't know that either. I don't remember you telling me that. That's a good little tip. But yeah, finding a replacement drink and feeling like you're joining in and not sat there not having as much fun as everybody else because of the taste, and being able to have that flexibility of choice. I agree, it's definitely changed. The landscape is a lot different now. And people are catching up. I think that's the thing, isn't it? The organisations and restaurants, and it's still lovely to go out if that's what you want to do, but having those choices and freedom. In terms of sort of family, I think that's quite a challenge sometimes, in those closed environments at home. But you already talked about children and being present. Women have got way more demands on them. We hear that so much. The sandwich generation, looking after parents and relatives, and then our younger children. How do women, or what do you advise women to sort of manage in a family setting when it comes to drinking and making choices not to?
It's not the same for everybody, because again, everybody's situation can be different. But for me, taking breaks really helps me. So there's a couple of things. So the first year, I think preparation is key.
Yep.
Looking at your calendar and thinking, right, okay, I mean, we're in the throes of it now, to be fair, anyway, aren't we? But looking at the things you want to attend, things that you're going to attend, and having that in your mind, knowing what you're going to be doing. Knowing as well that you're going to have people pop by potentially or be invited to things last minute. I tried to control every element of my first alcohol-free Christmas, and it ended up with me just being stressed out and quite resentful and quite frustrated. So being prepared and then being aware that things might kind of change a little bit. But on the day itself, there is nothing wrong with taking yourself off for a break. There is nothing wrong with just saying, I'm going for a bit of fresh air, I'm going to walk the dogs or whatever it might be, because we naturally would lean on having another glass of wine. I mean, we see the age-old adverts or videos or films or whatever of the mum stood in the kitchen throwing a glass of wine back because she's stressed out, or the dad or whoever it might be. But you haven't got that. You won't have that instant, what perceived kind of benefit on Christmas Day. So don't think you're rude to just take yourself out and go and spend the time with the kids. If the conversation's getting too much or everybody's drunk and it's driving you a little bit potty, go and sit with the kids and play games with them and be the fun person to them for the afternoon or the day or whatever it might be. But I think take breaks where you need them, and don't think that anyone's going to think bad of you, or don't care. Don't care.
That's a really good bit of advice, I think, because it can feel so overwhelming. The sensory stimulus of this one day, it's crazy actually when we stop to think about it. But just pressing pause, and we get energy from moving and fresh air and being outside. Often when we're feeling really tired, we think we need to sit down and do nothing at all, which mindful and conscious rest is useful, but sometimes we can actually feel more energized by moving away from a situation, can't we?
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Brilliant.
Well, with families, it's just preparation as well, like you said, about just like where you go out with friends, just being honest with family as well. So, I'm not drinking this Christmas, or I'm not going to drink much, or, if it's the norm in your family to, as you say, get sloshed on Christmas Day, then just to prepare people for that then, so they're not pressurizing you as well.
I think the other thing as well is, sorry, say that again, Laura.
Taking something, if you're going somewhere else, if it's like going to somebody else's house, it's taking your non-alcoholic versions with you. But I've reached a milestone now that I've had people over and they've come and brought the non-alcoholic versions for me with them, which is just lovely. So it's nice that thoughtfulness there.
Definitely.
And that way there's no awkwardness, you're not just left with a glass of water.
Yeah. The other thing as well is, I would say, is keep the traditions where you can as well, because a lot of people think that it's all about taking things out, and it's actually not. I mean, the sobriety for me is just a whole gorgeousness of things that you end up gaining, but it does take kind of a time to get there. But Christmas Day morning, we used to love a Bucks Fizz, but you can still do that. You can absolutely still do that. You just use an alcohol-free Bucks Fizz or an alcohol-free fizz with some orange juice in there. And I thought, well, these are just really straightforward tips, but there are ladies that I work with that I never even thought of that, because you kind of get so wrapped up in all of the bits that I'm not going to be able to do at Christmas. That actually you can keep the traditions, or do your best to keep the traditions where you can, and things feel normal. Because a lot of it was for me to keep things normal for Dale as well, because it's something that we did together. it was really important for me to try and keep Christmas as normal as possible for him. We used to sit up on Christmas Eve and wrap presents and drink Baileys together. The difference was he could stop after 2 and I'd want to stay up like a party girl on Christmas Eve. But keeping those traditions, still doing it, so that you don't feel like you're missing out.
Yes.
But just replace the drink.
Swapping. I think that's really, really essential. And you could apply that to so many different aspects
Absolutely.
of health, about moving away from that restriction setting. I think, you want to nourish ourselves, not punish ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a lovely phrase.
Yeah.
Actually, we just need to be a little bit more organised in terms of what's going to feel good for us and have those things in place, so that it doesn't feel like it's less joyful and restricted, because restriction's not helpful for anybody, is it?
No, not at all.
Super. I'm conscious of time, and I'll catch up today. So I feel like I've come away with a few extra things of what to think about over Christmas. What would be your top take home? Would it be planning and being prepared, Jodi?
Without a doubt, yeah. Plan as much as you can, but also be very mindful that you can't control everything.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a great focus to take away. And then we look forward to, in the new year, catching up some more and maybe taking a deeper dive into the hormonal changes and the shifts and things like that. But for Christmas, I think that's a good overview of some top tips to get through and to keep as level, as balanced as we were able to, within reason.
I just think to be honest, be honest with people around you, I think would be my take home point, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right, lovely to see you, lady.
Yeah.
You too.
I'll catch up.
Have a good Christmas.
Yeah, happy
Yes,
Christmas.
thank you. Have a lovely Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.